What's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to The Winning Drive. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis, pleased to be joined by fellow lifetime Longhorn young prodigy C.J. Vogel, and also our own coach, former high school football coach at Brownwood, Capel, Belton, Rotan, also played college football at Abilene Christian, coached there as well, was on the staff at the University of Texas for multiple head football coaches, and now you can catch his work at ShipleyRanches.com. Look at him. He's already he at work right now, I bet. What you doing?
I'm on the road, yeah. Showing ranches right now, man.
Oh man, so all right, so coach may have to jump on, jump off. Hey, coach, we get it. All right, coach, he's a real ranch man. Somebody just fake it. See y'all fake it out there. All right, so thank you for joining us.
Hang on.
Look at that.
Hey! Oh, look at that right there.
See that, that's legit. That ain't just for Yellowstone like some of y'all. Some of y'all started wearing them when Yellowstone came up.
No, this thing's got some battle scars on it.
That's legit. Yeah, I can see the trailer in the back and everything, man. There you go. All right, coaches are the real deal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, all right. Appreciate you joining us, Coach. I appreciate that, no doubt. Also appreciate you guys for joining us, no matter where you're joining us from. Maybe you're joining us on the ranch, no matter where you're joining us from. We really appreciate it. Got a lot of things we want to get to on the show. Of course, you got spring practice happening right now on the 40 acres. Actually, the weather actually is probably not cooperating, so I'm sure they've been indoors with that spring practice today. But we'll get into some spring practice conversation. We also can talk about the Longhorns who are heading to the NFL now. Almost done with the pre-draft process as we approach the NFL draft. Matt Miller, who actually is a Longhorn fan, but also a damn good draft analyst for ESPN. Guys, he came out with a 7-round mock draft. He did the real work, 7 rounds. So we'll talk about where he has the Longhorns, where he has them slotted in his 7-round mock draft. We'll dive into that. Also, this could be because you do have Texas relays happening this weekend. Like I said, weather is not really cooperating right now. We'll see if that clears up a little bit for the relays. But you'll also there can be a potentially big recruiting, or at least some recruiting nuggets. My man CJ can share about some guys who may be around the 40 acres and on the 40 acres. So we'll talk about that coming up. One of the things that went under the radar, guys, because we had so much news dropping with a new head basketball coach for the men, also spring practice starting, pro days as well. Also, they announced, or at least what Neil Brown's official title was going to be. So I wanted to get you guys' thoughts about that and talk to Coach about it too. So tons of stuff to get into. And of course, your questions, your comments, whatever you guys want to talk about, throw out as many questions and comments as you'd like. We'll try to address as many of them as we can. Super chat, jump to the front of the line. As you know, you can interrupt the show at any time that way. All right, let's dive into it, guys. I want to start actually with a tweet from a lifetime Longhorn, Matthew Golden, heading to the NFL draft, because it's a conversation that I've heard recently by draft analysts talking about Matthew Golden. So apparently there was someone on Twitter critiquing maybe the right word, and talking about their evaluation. Thank you very much, Matthew, of Matthew Golden's game, that Matthew Golden doesn't have 4.2 field speed, that it doesn't translate. And I've actually even kind of said that too. I think I've said it in a more respectful manner, that he doesn't, run routes necessarily at 4.2 speed, but he does get separation. And that's what he's really good at doing. That's the whole entire point of route running, is to create separation. But as you can see here, he talks about how you got to go back to the film. Also, I think the film would also help Matthew Golden, because it's got a really, really good film too. Matthew Golden's response to this person talking about his speed and his field speed as opposed to his track time was basically, wasn't my job to run 4.2 in my offense, bud. He's not the only one. This is interesting, and the reason I bring it up, because I think Matthew Golden is responding to a lot of the stuff that he is probably reading and hearing about his overall evaluation now. After running the 4.29, which was the 12th fastest time by a wide receiver at the NFL Combine in history, I believe. So he was moving. After running that time, there are a lot of people who went back to the film, and they had the same analysis that he doesn't run routes at a 4.29 speed, which I said actually to me means he's got a really high ceiling as a player. Because if somebody can teach him how to run routes, coach, at that kind of speed, good Lord, what kind of separation are you going to see then? If right now he's kind of running routes at, a speed that some people say maybe a 4.4 speed or something like that. Sam Munson, who is a draft analyst for the 33rd, him and Steve Palazzolo do a really good job. I actually listen to a lot of their stuff. He straight up said, and this no conspiracy theory, maybe it was dry humor, but he straight up said he does not believe the 40 time at the combine. He's in fact said he believes there was an error, or malfunction of some kind with the equipment or whatever. Like I just don't believe that he runs a 4.29. That is, I'm telling you, that may be the extreme view, but a lot of the people are leaning in their analysis is that, oh no, he doesn't necessarily play at that speed. Some people are saying that's a negative. I think it's a positive because, like I said, I think his development still in the future, coach, you can teach him how to run routes potentially at a faster speed than he actually runs them now if he's that efficient. So where do you stand on this? Is this just pre-draft nonsense, coach, or the wide receiver position as well as anybody? And you've watched Matthew Golden. What are your thoughts about this kind of conversation about Matthew Golden's evaluation?
Yeah, well, I think there's some legitimate concerns about that. Some guys run really fast 40s, but they don't play as fast on the field. And, honestly, I see that a little bit with Matthew, but his routes, the way he gets in and out of his cuts are really good, and I think that if you go back and watch the film on Matthew Golden, you can't help but be impressed with the way that he runs his routes and the way that he gets out of his cuts and the way that he has acceleration that a lot of people don't have. I see it a little bit. He doesn't necessarily play like a 4.2 guy, but in his defense, as he responded back to that quote, I don't know that was his job to do that. He wasn't really asked a whole lot to blow the top off of coverages. He was asked to get open, and that's what he did. And I think he did the best he could do in our system. How that is going to translate to the NFL, I'm not sure, but you got a guy that runs 4.29 who runs great routes and has great acceleration out of his breaks. I would certainly take a chance on a guy like that.
Yeah, no, it is. Like I said, it's. I think he has such a well-rounded skill set. Maybe it is just a way for them to try to find something to critique about his game. But I think that I'm with you, coach. I said that initially. I was like, I didn't think he'd be that fast. CJ, you were predicting 40 times. I don't know if you had him at a 4.29 or either at a sub 4.3. So I think everybody kind of had him at, hey, he's going to be 4.4, sub 4.4, right in that range. So to me, I actually think it means he's got a higher ceiling as a player if he gets with a really good coach. And there's even more potential separation he could get on routes, even though right now that's what separates him, I should say, from the pack.
Yeah, I think the best way to describe Matthew Golden's game is actually more quick than fast, which is kind of crazy considering the 4.29 is in his back pocket. But then you see him run the routes, you see him and how fluid he is in and out of breaks, and it fits the bill, right? So it was surprising, right? I was in Indianapolis when he ran that first 4.29, and I tell you what, that whole media section and the crowd itself, when they figured out that was the time, I don't think anybody was sitting there saying, that's what I thought, count me a winner. No, everybody was like, holy cow, are we sure? For Golden specifically, I think it's, it's tremendous in the sense that the ceiling is higher, to your point, Rod, but also how can you bring that speed out on a consistent basis if that's all what most folks didn't know you had in you, right? We've seen you for 3 years now. There's tape back to Houston for 2 years. We saw you as the wide receiver 1 for the back half of that season at Texas. How can you consistently bring out that elite speed when it was evident with Xavier Worthy? It was evident at times with Isaiah Bond, who ran a full 10th slower. So to bring that out, I think is going to be his next challenge and task at the next level. But hey, I don't think anybody's sitting there saying I'm not going to take Matthew Golden because he looked slow on tape or didn't look like he ran 4.29 when that number's sitting there right there with the hands and the route running. He's going to be a heck of an NFL player, and he's going to go really early in this year's draft.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like I said, I love Matthew Golden's game. I think he, especially late in the season, I don't think there's a player in the country at any position that increased their draft stock more than Matthew Golden. I just think the conversation surrounding his skill set right now is a little funny and somewhat ironic, considering he ran a 4.29 and he actually led all receivers in explosive plays of 20 yards or more as well. And so that also kind of track with a guy that has explosive speed and acceleration and separation. But like I said, the knock right now, I don't even know if that's considered a knock. Is that, does he run? Does he play at a 4.2 speed? It's like, well, I think it's almost like if he'd have ran a 4.4 flat, people would have been more satisfied.
It's weird like that, yeah.
Right, that their eval matched up with the film. And it's like, so sometimes it doesn't always match up. Right now, I think you should be more excited if you like the film, going, damn, the 4.29, I don't think he plays that speed. Wait till he gets some elite coaching at the next level and all he focuses on the football. This guy is going to be able to play at a 4.29 speed. So I thought it was interesting to bring up.
It's like folks were searching for their own confirmation bias, and when they realized that the alternative was a better option, they're like, wait a minute, that can't be right. It's bizarre, but I understand it.
Yeah, I was like, I think it just doesn't line up and track with their evals, and I guess that makes some folks a little bit uncomfortable. All right, let's get back to some Texas football conversation, guys. I saw that it went under the radar because there was so much going on the 40 this week that Neil Brown's, at least his title, in his role was officially reported, and it will be the special assistant to the head coach. And I don't think we talked about that, but that had been reported. Does that mean, Coach, because we've talked about the past special assistants to the head coach, the guys with that specific title, and I mean, are you talking about Gary Patterson, Paul Christ, was it Joe D. Camillus? I want to say Coach Hazelton had that title as well, if I'm not mistaken. I got to go back and go look, but I believe it goes under the radar because we don't necessarily report on that all the time.
Chris Gilbert is also listed as a special assistant to the head coach.
Exactly. So obviously, it's multiple special assistants. I don't know. So I don't know if we kept up with all of them. Good point, Coach. So my point is now he's got that title. Does that mean anything to you guys, that he may have more influence or more of an impact? I actually do, because I think the recent history of those guys who have come in, at least in a similar position like Neil Brown, former head coaches who are coming into that role, as opposed to like you brought up, Coach, Chris Gilbert, and then maybe even different than the other guys that I brought up, Hazelton and Joe D. Camillus. I think they have left their fingerprints on the program. And I got some examples here, but I think I have seen them leave their fingerprints, and I'm hoping that is the case for Neil Brown as well. And I know, CJ, you've done several articles about it, but in terms of how specific that impact could be. But I think it's a good thing. I think it means that Neil Brown's going to have more influence than initially thought as just an analyst.
Yeah, I hope so. And again, I think some of the expertise that he can bring with him in those short yardages, those goal line runs, can be something that Texas sees immediate results with. And, we look back at some of the biggest issues over the last 3 years with Sark, and it's been red zone, and Rod, you have some of the numbers, and Coach, I don't understand what the logic is behind it, but year one, when you had arguably your worst team, you were the best off in the red zone. So again, whether it be a Bijan or Roshan hangover, whether it just be finding who your quarterback is or not relying solely on your offensive line, this is a year that, look, you've got to figure it out. And to bring in all these new voices, specifically with Neil Brown, and to have that continuation with Chad Scott, that should help the cause. Now it's all about finding a way to go execute it. So I hope that title, more so than just being an analyst, allows them to get out there, see these guys in person, see what traits, what skills and strengths there are for these guys on the field, and then relaying some of that back to when he was the head play caller over at West Virginia. So this is an area Texas must improve on, and for Sarkisian to at least find a way to get a new voice, I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's a good title for him. I think he can. I don't know if he's going to have a certain position. Obviously, not if he's going to be a special assistant to the head coach. But I think it's a guy that can just move around throughout the offense and just, put stuff in coach's ear, so to speak, about what he thinks about the offense, what he thinks about, the run game, the, passing game, whatever. I know he's probably brought in more for the run game than he is for the passing game, but I think that's a good title for him. Just a guy that has the head coach's ear and can say, look, coach, I think, I've looked over our run game, looked over our personnel. This looks like a good fit to me, whatever. And then, you just, guys like that just spit out ideas. And then it's a head coach's responsibility to take what he feels like he can use and can implement into the system. And some things may not, that they may not fit with what Sark's trying to do. But I think he's just trying to surround himself with people that, can point out things to him that he may not be seeing himself. And I think, obviously, I think Neil Brown was brought in to help the run game with the type of offense that we run. And, I think it's a good title for him. I think it fits what he's going to do, very well.
Yeah, I think that's everybody's hope. Even the great articles that CJ's written up is that it'll be something that'll help Texas with more creativity, more juice in the running game, even the quarterback run game that people talked about. Not that Texas is going to major in it, they'll minor in it, but still bring some creative quarterback run concepts because of what we saw Gary Green do in that offense with Neil Brown for a couple of years. And they like more power concepts. I've noticed that when I watched West Virginia, just went back and watched some West Virginia film after Chad Scott was hired and after they brought Neil Brown on the staff. They like some of the same things that Texas likes. They like the outside zone. They stretch play, I think for them is what is more like, but they also like power. They have a zone, like a zoned counter that they use too. That's I think that's what it's kind of described as, that I think is a pretty cool play. So there's some bread and butter concepts that I wonder if we'll see more of with Texas now that you got Neil Brown's influence. The most impactful special assistant was, in my opinion, was Gary Patterson. Like I don't think there was a more impactful initially, because I think he helped PK get the, kind of the lay of the land in the Big 12. Nobody knew more about the Big 12 than Gary Patterson at the time. He had the cliff notes on everybody. I think when he came in, it was easy to go, oh no, this coach is like this system's like this, these guys. And the one thing that they started to do, because when GP came in, they were running a lot of vision zone coverage. Vision is basically you're covering one area of the field, and you just keep your eyes on the quarterback as you're covering that one area of the field, passing off a lot of routes, all right, which means guys get to run free. GP came in and, in my opinion, gave the cliff notes and was like, nah, you got to play pattern match. You got to match it up. You can't, not in this league, not with all these great offensive minds in this league. You got to pattern match it. And when a guy comes in your zone, stick it. You got to stick to him. And it took Texas a couple of years, but that first year, they basically almost say, if you look at the coverage matrix, like the percentages of when and how they run their coverages, they were basically running a TCU. It was basically Gary Patterson's like a TCU style defense in terms of the coverage matrix. A lot of pattern match quarters. So a lot of two highs, like Gary Patterson liked to use. So I think ultimately, and there was some other guys. Paul Chris had a really good influence. Some of the 6-0 line packages, how they expanded that personnel grouping. I'd give a lot of credit to Paul Chris because he was a guy known around the country for extra offensive line groupings that he'd use up there in the Big Ten, and Texas was really good. They didn't use it last year, though, but they were really good, that 6-0 line package, and that was that 2023 season when Paul Chris came in. And Joe DeCamillis, I believe we all know, he was probably missed on special teams, right? This past season. Not saying that they weren't good before that, but Joe DeCamillis definitely helped. And they liked they liked Coach Hazelton's presence so much as that Nichols coach. Hell, now they got a Nichols coach, an actual one. instead of just a guy, in that special assistant guy in that role. So, special assistants usually have, like I said, more of an impact than we give them credit for. And I'm hoping that is the case for Neil Brown. All right, let's before we move on, let me thank our friends, one of our sponsors. Let's thank our friends over at My Athlete 360. That's right, folks. Opportunity meets innovation and focus. The future of youth sports is here, and early adopters are already winning. For coaches and trainers, My Athlete 360 is your gateway to growth for yourself and the organizations you represent. Showcase your expertise and connect directly with families actively seeking your skills, all without expensive marketing costs. For parents, we bring trusted athletic opportunities right to your fingertips with customizable filters for age, sport, type, and budget that will match with your child with the perfect coach or trainer. And whether you're a coach building a thriving business or a volunteer coach looking to bring new kids into your youth organization, or a parent seeking quality training, My Athlete 360 makes the connection simple and secure. Don't miss out on the platform that's revolutionizing youth sports development. Download My Athlete 360 today. Your competitive advantage awaits. All right. That's CJ. I know you were speaking earlier about this weekend potentially being recruiting, kind of a big recruiting weekend for Texas, with the Texas relays and spring practice happening. Is there still, even with the weather obviously not cooperating, is that still potentially the case for Texas?
Yeah, weather isn't great so far, so hopefully it holds off. Of course, it's raining pretty heavy right now, and it has been for quite a while today. So I don't think action at the Texas relays are going to be as fun. They'll still have them, obviously, weather permitting, but we'll see how many guys actually make the trip and compete. I will say this, a few big names that are expected in. We'll start in the 27 class. Jaquan Snell, a defensive back out of Waxahachie, expected to make the trip down. That was one that Texas previously had not had a lot of communication with. But to hear that there are communications, that there is some convos going with Jaquan Snell, let's go check the rankings. I mean, he's an early top 10, top 15 player in the country in the 27 class, right up the road in I-35. So great to hear about that. And then in the 26 class, of course, I've mentioned Jalen Lott expected to make it down this weekend, as is Boobie Feaster, the wide receiver out of DeSoto. Coach might actually be your favorite player, 6'2.5" or so, runs about 10'4", 10'5", heck of an athlete. But really talented ball player out of DeSoto. He'll be making the trip back down. LSU was perceived to be one of the teams heavily involved in that recruitment, but they now have 4 receivers in their class, including Jabari Mack and Tristan Keys, who Texas liked a lot. And then Texas A&M is where he's at today. A&M's got 3 wide receivers in their class, so we'll see just how quickly Texas pushes on Boobie Feaster. But a heck of a prospect coming down, seeing the Longhorns for the first time in quite a while, I believe.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Good stuff there. And Noah, speaking of, you brought up Jalen Lott there. I think it's David Keith Williams had a question here. Now it's a good question. It's a little lengthy because I want him to, he breaks it down here. So give me a second. Here it is. He says, this is a very long and cumbersome question that I really hope you address. He says, regarding Jalen Lott, he recently high jumped 7 feet, as CJ saw and mentioned earlier this week. And I saw that too on social media. That is just freaky. And he's got the genetics because his dad was also a world-class track athlete as well, multi-sport athlete here at Texas. And he said he has done so early in the 2025 track and field season. I thought he would reach 7 feet at some point this season, just not this soon. As early as it is, he possibly could reach 7'2" or higher later in the season. If he does, it would place him in position to reach or exceed the national high jump record of 7 feet 6 inches at some point next track season. Do you think it would be in Lott's better interest to remain in high school to compete in track and possibly reach the national high jump record, or bypass track and field as a senior and enroll early in the 2026 spring, hopefully at Texas? Damn, that's a good question. I want everybody to jump in on this. Thank you for that, David Keith Williams. And if you haven't watched this young man, I mean, I got a chance to watch film on him. I'll let CJ kind of break it down because he's actually covered him right in recruiting and covered him actually when he was. You talked about him when he was like a freshman. You said you talked about stories when he was a freshman there and on the freshman team and going up against guys. But he he could play offense or defense. I think he should play defense because his dad played DB at Texas. So that the assumption was he would be a DB if he came to Texas, or when he comes to Texas. Hopefully that's the case. But I think he's the type of athlete, and David Keith Williams just broke it down right there. I think he potentially could be a guy that could play either at the highest level. Now, I ain't saying he's Travis Hunter. I ain't saying both at the same time. Maybe, but he is the kind of athlete that I think can play wide receiver. Just from what I've watched, wide receiver or DB at the next level. Like, that's how good of an athlete he is. To that question, CJ, right now, if he's close to that national record, I'm gonna say you got to go get the record, right? I mean, you could go. You're gonna be a great athlete at the next level in college. We know that. I just said that. There ain't no doubt about that. Hell, CJ, you probably saw signs of that when he was, a freshman. But I'm just talking. If you got a chance, coach, to get a national record, oh man, I'm gonna say you got to get the national record, and then you can go play football after that. After you get the national record, am I wrong? Maybe that's how I'm thinking. Maybe that's how I would approach it. How him, CJ? How would he approach it?
It's going to be interesting. How close can he get to it this year? And if he gets right on the doorstep and is looking like he's about to break that door down, look, maybe he does stick around for another spring. But knowing him, knowing the family, I think getting on campus is going to be of a high priority. How quickly can he see the field? Because again, this is a guy that's pushing a 5-star rank. He can play on both sides of the ball. He's been recruited right now. Look at this. Georgia and Texas are recruiting him at cornerback. And you have Ohio State, Oregon, and LSU saying, no, you're going to be a wide receiver. So
God's crazy.
It doesn't get much better than that when it comes to programs across the country and then where programs have had a lot of success producing guys into the NFL at those specific positions. So I think for Lott specifically, get to campus as early as you can. And, you got, 2 more months basically to go break that record. I don't know if that's something that he really wants, but I can't see another track and field season being a reason why he's not on campus playing football as an early enrollee.
Yeah, I agree. I think just the NIL, is so much bigger, obviously, in football than it is in track and field. And really, for a guy that's 6 foot tall, I don't know. Has a 6 foot guy ever jumped 7'6" or 7'7"? I mean, 6 inches is, that's a lot of height to make up in one season.
Yeah.
And he might could do it his senior year, but what's his goal? Is his goal to be an Olympian high jumper, or is his goal to be an NFL player? I think that's what it comes down to. And again, I think the NIL side of football is going to be much greater than what he would gain by staying in high school and trying to break a national record that I don't know how long that record has stood, but I think I'm hoping he's wise enough to understand that football is his ticket. And I doubt a high jumper there's much NIL money in a guy that, even though he breaks a national record, it is what it is. His future is obviously in football. That's where the money is. Mm-hmm. And I would love to see him come on and, eventually, he'll obviously be a high jumper in the spring and track and field. And I think 6 inches, like I said, that's a tough 6 inches to get in 3 months.
Yeah.
2 months.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. No, I'm not. It ain't easy. But I don't know what his like I said, I don't even know what position he wants to play. I assume he's gonna want to play DB because it's in the lineage, and here at Texas, guess what they want him to play, and maybe he wants to play something else, and maybe that'll steer him away from Texas if that is the case. But he wants to play wide receiver, so I'm not sure what his, like I said, you said, coach, what his goals are. But football is, like you said, it's the future for him. No doubt, no matter what position he's going to decide to play. But man, to be a legend, no. I'm from a world where I didn't have NIL, so man, it meant something to get a record. I guess now it doesn't mean anything, and I get that. But back in my day, man, it kind of meant something to get a national record. All right, good question there, David Keith. Appreciate that one. How about this one from CB? Says, CJ, is Nick Cody staying in Austin?
There's some murmurs that he and head coach Sean Miller had a good, positive conversation. I actually got a couple of messages out to make sure what that next plan will be for him. But look, Devin Pryor is expected to hit the portal. Texas trying to build that roster basically from scratch for Sean Miller in year one. And this is certainly where you're going to start seeing a lot of these names fall very quickly with this portal window happening this week. So we'll see. But I do know that conversation went well with Sean Miller earlier today.
All right. Thank you, CB, for the question. We appreciate that. Let's thank our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery before we move on. One of our sponsors of the Winning Drive. Did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's right, folks. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan, now available at your local Specs. They also have a display at a local Central Market here in Austin, doing some shopping there, and saw the display from Flat Creek Estate Winery, which means the good word is getting out about the great wines over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. Not only do they produce some of the best premium wines on the market, but also Flat Creek is a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend, perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. As a matter of fact, I got a chance to take a tour of the grounds there at Flat Creek Estate Winery, and it is amazing. And a member of our own Texas football family got engaged there as well. So no matter how special the occasion, our friends at Flat Creek Estate Winery, they can accommodate you. So give them a shout, flatcreekestate.com. You can look them up. You can see their wines there. Also, you can book a reservation for a wine tasting or a tour there at flatcreekestate.com. All right, let's get back to, actually, I want to get to, we'll get to that Matt Miller 7-round mock draft here, but I got a couple of questions here that then we'll dive into it. Roger said, I rewatched some of Texas games back when we had B-Rob. Sark dialed up some good schemes that's worked. So what the heck happened in a few years to the running back schemes? I think you're talking about like the run game period. Because I think actually, because Jaden Blue this year dialed up some really good, cool concepts and was stubborn about them. Was very bullish about the concepts and forcing the football to Jaden Blue. The Texas routes, or that angle route, the wheel route, he throw on those design swing routes out of the backfield to get them matched up one-on-one out in the flats, and he's got to beat one guy, and then boom, he's off to the races. The screen game, Sark's one of the best screen designers in all of football, period, at either level. So screen game. So I'm assuming we're talking about the running game. If Roger, if I'm off though, let me know if you're talking about something else. But I would say this: Bijan is special though. If we're talking about Bijan Robinson, Bijan is just special. Like all we've had. Listen, can we go back, Matthew? Can you go find that photo of 2022? With all the running backs on the sideline, they all on the bench, and it's all of them. It's Bijan, Rojo, Jonathan Brooks, Keelan Robinson, I think, and Jaden Blue. All of them by the whole that photo. Somebody's got to get that photo signed. I talked to somebody, got to get that. I got to talk to John Bianca. Somebody like, hey man, y'all need to get that photo signed and just put that up, because that is, I don't know how many position rooms across the country that been able to say that many NFL guys were in that one room. All right, that are getting drafted, because I think we all agree Jaden Blue's gonna get drafted. We just don't know where at this point. But
it's so sweet.
Oh, look at that! Look at that, man! That is legit. We got to blur. It's nothing against these guys. We got to blur out the guys in the front there. Right?
Yeah, you got all the walk-on guys standing on the sidelines and all the big dogs sitting on the bench.
Yeah, nothing against those guys are awesome, but we got to blur them out somehow. Y'all know how to do that with some graphic stuff. We can blur them out, and then boom, look at that. I mean, look at that group. That's a beautiful thing right there. And I love the bookend Robinson. They did it on purpose. The bookend, the Robinson, and the book. Come on, man. That might be one of the coolest photos in Texas football history, guys. Straight up. That it gets cooler and cooler by the day. Right? Jaden Blue just made it a whole lot cooler when he ran the 4.2 something.
Yeah, no kidding.
But getting back to Roger's question, I'm assuming, Roger, like I said, Roger, let us know if you're talking about the pass game. Because I assume you're talking about the run game. He said says it's not. Yeah, I think you're talking about the run game. So that's what the Neil Brown we were hoping influence could help as well. More creativity there, right? Overall.
Yeah, I would think so. And again, I think you want more of that near the goal line. I went through it earlier today, Rod, because Jake Majors was 305, Hayden Connor was 314 at the combine. Of course, DJ Campbell actually kind of dropped some weight from 327 to 322 on the newest roster. But look, you're going to have Cole Hudson at 315 at center. You're going to have Nato Umeozulu at 325 at left guard. You're looking at an average offensive line weight of those three on the interior at 321 pounds, up about 7 or 8 pounds from a year ago. So take that for what it's worth, right? We talk about big humans. It's easy to point there and just say, hey, they got a big body. They got to be good at offensive line. Of course, it certainly helps to be older and have gone through springs and fall camps, et cetera. But I'm looking at this group and what I know about DJ Campbell and what his strengths are and what I know about Nato Umeozulu and how feisty he can get in the run game as well, saying, yeah, you add that with a center who's only ever played in a wing T running offense in high school and say, there's got to be an improvement with this group, and if not, then I don't know what the remedy is, because you've had guys you've handpicked out of high school. You've had guys who've been 4 years now into the system. This is the time for this offensive line and running game to really figure it out. And I think you have the personnel currently to go out there and get it done. Not to mention there's some cats behind them. If I start talking about a Nate Kibble, yeah, he can play some ball. He's turning some heads right now in fall camp. Or spring camp, excuse me. But point being, you got the guys, you got the age, you got the experience, and hopefully the talent to go out there and create a better running game. Question now is what kind of wrinkles can help alleviate that process, and that's where Neil Brown and some of these new running game ideas come in.
Okay, yeah, no, I agree with you. And let's not forget, I think just Arch Manning having the ability to run. I'm not saying they're going to run Arch, 10 times a game or anything like that, but just having the ability to run, all of the metrics and analytics, and honestly, kind of the common sense of football tells you when you got a dual threat quarterback, a quarterback that can run, it opens up the traditional running game. So I think it will open up traditional running game a little bit for you too. Just for the defense, it changes the math. I have to account for now another potential threat in the backfield as a runner. So I think that'll help. And I hope the Neil Brown influence, young offensive line, maybe they got a different skill set. And one of the things that I think happened last year, and this goes to Bijan too. Listen, Bijan didn't have a weakness as a running back. Like, he was great at everything. He can run anything. Like, some of these guys, they're great at some specific concept, but may not be as effective in another, right? There's certain schemes for Jaden Blue that we know maximizes Jaden Blue's skill set. Same thing for a Trey Wisner, right? Same thing for a Jerry Gibson. Bijan was anything. And you could be whatever you wanted to be in the running game with Bijan Robinson. I don't know if you could do that with the back. Not the guys aren't talented, but they were not Bijan talented. Right. That was kind of a generational guy. So I think that's why the running game looked a little bit differently. Shout out to Rocky Knows Best. Several, including CV, several of y'all telling me that was her picture. That is an iconic photo. I love Rocky. She's awesome. So shout out to Rocky Knows Best because, yeah, that's one of the greatest picks in Texas football history, Coach. You gotta put that up there, man. That's I don't know when we're gonna get that signed by everybody. Maybe it's already, and I love David Keith Williams, coach, says that photograph is almost as significant for recruiting running backs as Texas name, image, and likeness funding. That's brilliant. Because all you got to do is set that photo down in the living room right there, Coach. But
yeah, no doubt. No doubt. There's going to be a lot of legends that will wind up being in that photo when their careers are all said and done.
Yeah. Hey, if Tashard Joyce ever comes back to college, all he has to do is point that same camera or that same picture down on the table and say, yeah,
Boom. Yeah, even the coaches. The coaches in the league too. Everybody in the league from that room, man. That's a special room, ain't no doubt about it. All right. Someone says it's Blue getting drafted in his running back class. We'll get into the Matt Miller mock draft. That's kind of a perfect segue. We'll get into the Matt Miller mock draft because he went 7 rounds in this latest mock draft, and he actually does have Jaden Blue getting drafted. Okay, so Matt Miller did his 7-round mock draft, and I said, God bless the man for going that deep. The first Longhorn off the board, and we talked about this, guys, that it may not be Kelvin Banks, because I think it was Kelvin Banks forever. He's got Jahdae Barron as the first Longhorn off the board in the top 10, going to the Saints at number 9. Wow. I know. That's amazing that if he, that a true draft analyst has got him, going all the way. Oh, thank you, that Matthew. Has got him, rising that high to number 9 overall. That's phenomenal. He is the most versatile DB, and he is the most versatile DB in this draft class. There's no question. But I think he is the best DB in the draft class. I do. I think he's better than Will Johnson. I know people have Will Johnson rated just as high. I would have him better than Will Johnson because of the versatility, and he ran faster than Will Johnson. I don't know what Will Johnson ended up running because he didn't run at the combine, did he? No, he didn't run at the combine. I don't know what Will Johnson ran actually.
Yeah, and that's one of the big question marks with his game is the top end speed. And for Barron, look, 4.39. Talk more about that Texas speed. Top 10 for a cornerback is great. Top 10 for a Texas player. Oh man, start building on that top 10 resume, right? Bijan was a few years ago. It's been a while since you've been able to stack guys like this. But that'd be a big selling point for Texas. If you can go out there and say, hey, you went from Bijan to Byron Murphy and Xavier Worthy to now a Jahdae Barron that went top 10 and potentially Matthew Golden, Kelvin Banks, all first round. Yeah, that development's going to be on full display for the Longhorns. And again, that ripple effect of how that trickles down into recruiting, it's huge. Texas just signed the number 1 class. We're talking all about these early enrollees and freshmen. This train is going to keep rolling. Those wins are going to keep stacking. So that's exciting for all the way around in the program. But Rod, Jahdae, if that doesn't epitomize, trusting the camp around you, trusting what the scouts say, trusting yourself and returning to campus and building on what you've already done, look, I think it's a great sign.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is a guy that was considered kind of a mid-round draft pick to start the season and really played himself into being the best DB in the country. I think in this draft, he's worthy of being drafted in the top 10. Mm-hmm. That good. Matthew Golden, he's got drafted by the Seattle Seahawks guys at 18 by the Seattle Seahawks, which,
hey, Coach, you said he reminds you of Tyler Lockett. There's your Tyler Lockett replacement. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Cooper Kupp. You go get yourself a Matthew Golden. I think you got yourself a nice little receiving trio.
Like that. Yep. I remember Coach made that comparison. 23, Green Bay with Kelvin Banks at 23 for Green Bay, which that's a steady organization. If Green Bay's drafting you, you should just be happy as a player because that's one of the most stable organizations in the NFL. They, in terms of them evaluating talent and developing talent, they've been one of the best in the NFL through the last, 2-3 decades. I don't know when the Packers have had a down spell, if you will, as a franchise. So for Kelvin Banks Jr., that's a great franchise to go to. Yeah. You drafted later than you thought, but you can't get better than going to the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, no kidding. I hope he likes the cold because those games up in Lambeau, the frozen tundra up there, good luck.
Yeah, that sucks.
It'd be a little different than those summers down in Houston at Summer Creek.
That's true. That part of it does suck. I played from cold weather teams. That part does suck. All right. And that's the first round, guys. It's first round. That's all he's got in the first round. He got 3 in the first round. First time the Longhorns will have had 3 players drafted in the first round since 1980, the year I was born. In the second round, though, first Longhorn drafted after the first round, he's got Quinn Ewers. Yep, he's got Quinn Ewers at 40.
The Saints make a lot of sense because I do believe that the Saints had a lot of brass at the Texas Pro Day. There's communications there with Kellen Moore and their general manager, whose name is escaping me now, with Quinn at the Pro Day. It would make sense if a new coordinator or a new head coach who has an offensive mind wants to go find a quarterback to fit his system rather than kind of working with the guy that's been there and not necessarily lived up to what is a pretty hefty paycheck right now. I think that's a good fit now. I don't know if the Saints have an offensive line or wide receivers right now with Chris Olave having about 4 brain cells left from all the concussions he's had recently. So hopefully, if that's the landing spot for Quinn, they've got some guys in this draft loaded up, ready to rock with. But Rod, Coach, I can just imagine the numbers Alvin Kamara would put up on those dump downs from Quinn.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a 100-catch season again for Kamara.
fantasy guys out there salivating, fantasy nerds. Also in the second round here, guys, he's got Alfred Collins going to the Atlanta Falcons. It's a nice spot for Alfred Collins getting drafted in the second round, considering at the pro day didn't even work out really at the pro day. Would show you, and this is a really deep D-line draft, by the way. Like it's one of the deepest positions, if not the deepest position, coaches interior D-line, and he would have Alfred Collins as one of the top interior D linemen in this draft coming out if he goes to the Falcons at 46.
Well, at 6'6", 332 pounds, he adds some versatility to your defense for sure because he can play a couple of different positions.
Yep.
That's a great pick.
Yep.
He'd be joining back up with Taquan Graham. How about that?
I know. Yeah, he just re-signed with them this offseason. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Good for him. It's a good point. And 56. This is the one that kind of surprised me, and it's a good surprise. He's got 56 Buffalo Bills. So via pick, he got Andrew Makuba going to the Bills at 56. Guys, what are your thoughts? Because I told Makuba to his face. I said, man, and I said it aggressively too. I probably scared him. I said, man, I think you're the best coverage safety in this draft, and just straight up coverage skills. Because the guy can play nickel if he really wanted to.
You think that scared him, Rod?
I said it aggressively because I was excited. Yeah, I thought he was like, "Oh man, thank you." He's like, "I believe it too." He said, "I believe it too." But I really do believe he's the best coverage safety in the draft. And if he's drafted this high, it would prove me correct. That they're like, no, we just need a safety that can cover, and this guy covers like a nickel back, and maybe it'll play nickel for us in certain situations. Coach, I think that Coach, this is why I think he and like I said, I don't know if he's gonna stick it to it. I like Matt Miller's analysis, so I don't know if he's gonna sneak this high, but I know teams are excited about him. This is why, Coach, because we know he can cover, right? We know he can cover, but he hits for a guy that small. You don't feel bad about keeping him on the field on early downs if they want to run against you. Because this dude will come down and lay the wood. And I think that's what's going to make NFL scouts love you, man, is because you ain't going to make me look bad. You're not a situational player. And you cover like a true coverage safety, but you come down and hit like an old school Chuck Cecil. And I think that's why they might draft him. I don't know if he's going this high, but higher than we think, Coach.
Yeah, he's a very versatile player. Once again, we talk about that all the time with Sark. You know, Sark's recruiting and his development of players. They're very versatile. And Makuba brings a skill set to the NFL that's hard to find in one guy. You know, a guy that can cover, but also a guy that can come and lay the wood on you on the running game, you know. And so I think Makuba, at 56 would be a great pick for the Bills. And I think it'd be a win-win situation for Makuba as well. He just adds a lot of versatility to their defense, in my opinion, just like he did for us.
And I heard, CJ, you were on a sports radio station in Buffalo. Were you not earlier? Was that?
Yeah, bright and early this morning. I was jumping through tables, screaming at Bills Mafia. My boys over at, I believe, WGR. So we were talking first round, some wide receivers, because I know the Bills are in the market for adding a guy or two next to Keon Coleman up there. So, yeah, it was a good time this morning. We didn't talk about Andrew Makuba, but I like this pick too. But like Kelvin Banks, if he ends up in cold weather, hey, good luck.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I don't know why, but the football gods, they did not treat me well when I played for all cold weather teams. I think Tampa Bay was the only warm weather team that I got a chance to stay with for a little while. All right, getting back to the Matt Miller mock draft here. All right, so now we're out of the second round, I believe. We're getting to the third round, and we got Isaiah Bond going to the Carolina Panthers. Thank you very much, Matthew. 74. They got so Bryce Young getting a weapon, Isaiah Bond there. This, for Isaiah Bond, it'd be interesting to see because Bryce Young starts to play much better actually toward the end of last season. Not sure if he's going to pick up where he left off, but man, if you can become, I don't know if he has a number one guy there. I don't know who the number one guy is in Carolina. Now you got some Longhorns there. You got JT Sanders there. Got Jonathan Brooks there.
Half the offense.
Yeah, right. So you might have basically all Longhorn skill positions pretty much. I don't know what Jonathan Brooks is in his injury, but I think it's an interesting spot for Isaiah Bond. If he ends up being a potential number one guy there, he could be.
I think it's a great fit for Bond because, again, where was Bryce Young really good at when he started to figure things out? Vertically down the field. And I think that's one part of the Isaiah Bond game that we didn't get to see a whole lot this year is connecting on those deep crossing routes, those posts, those goes. The marriage with Quinn Ewers just wasn't there. Now, Bryce Young, we can talk about where he is as a quarterback and all the other facets of the game. But when he can sit back, evaluate, and throw that thing as far as he can, he's a pretty good quarterback. And I think that's a really strong fit and connection there for Isaiah Bond. Question is, does Bond come out and he reunite with his Alabama quarterback and say, all right, I'm back in my Crimson Tide, or he start rocking more and more with JT Sanders and Jonathan Brooks in the burnt orange? We'll see.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Good stuff. All right. So, here completes the top 100 here. You still got one more Longhorn drafted in the top 100 according to Matt Miller. That would be Cam Williams to the 49ers at pick 100. That's a great, it's a nice scheme fit for him with the 49ers. And I could see them looking at him as a developmental project coach to be potentially, a future starting right tackle for them. Maybe a guy that can play both right and left if he matures into that.
Yeah, and I also think he's a guy that could bump down to guard as well. I think he's a versatile enough player that being a top 100 pick, I think that's a win-win. I think it's good for Cameron Williams, but I also think it's good for a team that's looking for a versatile, offensive lineman. I think Cam adds a lot of versatility to the offensive line. Just because we play guys at tackle, that we know that it doesn't mean that they're going to wind up at tackle in the NFL. But the good thing about being at tackle, you're already one step ahead of guys that are that are guards and centers. In college going into the draft, get a guy that's that can move well like Cameron. And if you need to, you can move him inside or you can keep him outside. Either way, I think he adds versatility to the draft. And I think if he goes to the top 100, I think that's a good thing for him. I don't know that I had him in the top 100, but that would be great for him if he is.
Yeah, Coach, you're right. A lot of guys do switch up. And I didn't think about that, but you're right. Depending on when they bring them in and what the depth is they have on the offensive line, they could easily bring them in and say, no, we can play them right away at guard.
Right.
Put them in guard. We can play them right away at tackle. It may take a couple of years to get them, to get the footwork down. Let's put them where we can play them right away. Give them some confidence. Let them contribute. That's a great point. Didn't think about it. And it's a good scheme fit too, because
it is. Yeah. And look, they've talked about Kelvin Banks at pick 11. You can go get Cam Williams at pick 100. Look, to be maybe your replacement for Trent Williams whenever he calls it a career. Yeah, that's a great fit.
Yep.
Williams.
Yep, totally agree with you.
And it's not cold.
And it's not cold. Yeah. It's not cold, but man, have you seen the cost of real estate in San Francisco? Remember Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy had a roommate when he was still the starting quarterback of the 49ers? Because he's like, no, I cannot afford to live alone in San Francisco. That's how expensive it is. So yeah, hey, you can't have it all. You can't have it all. All right, jumping into here we go. Back to the Matt Miller mock draft at 110. He's got the New York Jets taking Gunnar Helm.
Good luck, Gunnar. Sorry about it.
Yeah, he's got him taking Gunnar Helm there. I guess that is a tough place to end up. Period. And yeah. What's the situation at QB? What's the situation with the offense there with the Jets after Aaron Rodgers kind of left it in shambles? I'm not sure. But I'll say this about Gunnar Helm. I think Gunnar Helm, there are a lot of teams I think that really like Gunnar Helm, and his stock probably didn't rise much in the pre-draft process at all because of the injury that he had to combine, and he didn't do much at pro day other than just run routes. I do think Gunnar Helm's a guy that can stick in the league, though.
Yeah.
I think he made that obvious. So Jets, I'm with you. Probably not ideal spot for him, but I think Gunnar Helm's an NFL player. Atlanta Falcons at 118 draft Barron Sorrell, according to Matt Miller in his latest mock draft. So Atlanta Falcons, man, stocking up on the Longhorns. With Bijan and Taquan Graham and Alfred Collins is probably in this draft. At 122. The Denver Broncos, he's got him drafting Jake Majors at center.
I like that.
That would be quite a compliment because Sean Payton is a guy that knows offense and if Sean Payton's drafting you as an offensive player, it's probably a great compliment to you. Green Bay Packers, he's got the Packers taking Jaden Blue with the 124th pick overall. Taking Jaden Blue. And I think, honestly, that would be a good place for him to end up. It is a Shanahan scheme. They do run a lot of outside zone. They also run a lot of two-back sets there as well with Matt LaFleur. I think that actually may end up being a really good spot for him if that indeed is true. As you said, CJ, sucks that it's cold. Period.
Yeah, definitely. That's all I'm worried about for these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, keep me in the South, but how about that? You go 124 to the Packers. You're one pick behind Cam Scatabo. You don't think speed matters in the NFL? I would say that the production and the value that Scatabo had for Arizona State versus that of Blue, and don't get me wrong, Blue had a great year towards the back end, especially in the playoffs, but Scatabo was basically that entire offense for Arizona State. And that just tells you right there that 4.25, that 4.28, even that 4.38 at the combine for Blue, scouts, coaches, execs, they all love that. And they'll find a spot for that in the NFL at any moment, really.
Totally agree with you. And to finish out his mock draft, he's got Vernon Broughton going to the Buffalo Bills at 169th, the 169th pick. And then going down to 215, he's got the Las Vegas Raiders taking Hayden Connor. How about that? Hayden Connor jumping up on the board. So that would make, that would make 14 guys drafted. Code, that'd be 14. Man, what's the modern record for Texas? I'm not sure what the modern record is.
11 for Texas. I think in Alabama or Georgia's had like 50.
Yeah. So
Michigan last year had 15.
So this would break Texas record for sure, like shatter it if that's the case. And compete with the national record. That would be a successful draft if that is the case. And with this fit, your prognostication, CJ, about how many guys were going to get drafted, and did anybody get left out that we thought in this case? Yeah, I think he basically has everybody getting drafted that is of note, like the most notable players that we have talked about.
If Texas goes 14 for 14 on guys from the NFL Combine, that's a huge success. Because originally I did not have Hayden Connor getting drafted in my mock draft, but hey, you go to the Combine, you do well in interviews, as we know Hayden Connor will do. I think that'd be huge. And of course, that's only going to help a Kyle Flood, a Steve Sarkisian when it comes to recruiting as well. And it'll just make Sundays even that much more fun, right? It wasn't too much fun in 2019, 2020, 2021 even. You look on, you start turning on TV and you're like, oh, man, okay, we still got Marquise Goodwin, but where else are some of these skill guys, right? Oh, okay, Colin Johnson's on a new team. Let's see if he can find a way on into the rotation, make some big plays. Now it's every time you turn on a game, essentially, you're going to see Xavier Worthy and Matthew Golden, a Jaden Blue. Oh, up front is a Jake Majors and a Kelvin Banks, right? That's going to be fun for Texas fans, and I hope this is a time that they enjoy it because, again, we all know this can disappear at any moment, really.
Any moment. Yeah, no, you're right about that. All right, so that is Matt Miller's mock draft. My CV says if Texas gets 16 drafted, they would have the modern record and the overall record of 17 drafted in 1984. Good Lord. That's 7. Nobody's going to touch that 17. Well, I say that, but see, they just pointed out that Michigan had 15. So I say nobody's going to touch that. You went to National, I believe that was that Jim Nagy tweet from a couple of months ago that the last 5, well, ever since LSU, I believe, the winner of the national championship has also had the most players drafted that year, that ain't no coincidence at all. Duke says if Texas gets 14 drafted this year, they will match Georgia's 2-year record. There you go.
Yeah, 25.
Man, it's impressive. He's on a heater. He is on a heater in terms of producing NFL players, man. It's kind of getting back to Mac in his prime, maybe even surpassing those numbers of Mac in his prime. All right, let's get to, I think, one of our sponsors before we move on. I know we're getting to the end of the show, or approaching the end of the show, but let me thank our friends over at South Point Dodge before we move on. Our friends over at South Point Dodge give you the chance to score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including a great selection of Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s. whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is your one-stop shop. Speaking of scoring big, you can have the chance to score big right now at South Point Dodge with a great deal with over 50, that's right, over 50 Ram 2500s right now, all marked down with huge savings at South Point Dodge. You can go check them out in person off of I-35 in South Austin, or you can go online, go check out their inventory there at southpointdodge.com. So no matter what you need, a new car, used car, maybe you want to trade something in, our friends at South Point Dodge can give you the deal of a lifetime. No matter what your concerns are, South Point Dodge is your automotive everything, Austin's automotive everything, and you're a one-stop shop. So we appreciate southpointdodge.com and South Point Dodge for sponsoring the winning drive and being part of the Owen Texas football family. All right, let's get back to a couple of questions here. How about this one? This is from David Keith Williams. He says, how significant do you think Coach Becton has been for Texas the past 4 years? Cam Williams weighed 380 plus as a recruit 3 years ago and weighed 317 earlier this month at the NFL Combine. Coach, I want to get your thoughts about this. It's definitely the case that we have underrated and undersold Coach Becton's impact. I think it's hard for a lot of people to be able to quantify, what the strength and conditioning coach has done. I've been around the program with him. He is fantastic. I agree totally with David Keith Williams that, man, I don't know if we're giving him enough credit for what we've seen these guys do now at the Combine and how we're seeing Texas kind of look like they're separating athletically from the rest of the other programs around the country.
That's 63 pounds. 63 pounds. That's unbelievable that Becton could bring a guy like Cam Williams, in and really make him a legitimate NFL prospect who did his thing at the Combine and, is going to wind up, I think, having a long career in the NFL, but he wasn't going to have it at 380 pounds as a freshman. There's no doubt about that. No, yeah, I think he definitely does not get the credit he deserved. He's the unsung hero, I think, of this Texas program, and he's a vital part of what they do. And, not only does he do a good job of developing players, but he develops them to be great on the football field, not just in the weight room. Yeah. And that's what you need from a weight guy. You need a guy who's not just all caught up in the numbers, but he's caught up in how well does it translate to success on the field. And I think that's what Torrey does a great job. He gets these guys ready to be dominant on the field and not necessarily great in testing, but the product of all his work shows on the field. I think, in my opinion, the film doesn't lie. The development of these guys he's the real deal. And you do whatever you have to do to keep him on staff because he's a main cog in the success of the program, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can say this. The New York Jets, we talked about them just now in that mock draft, they wanted Torrey Becton very badly this offseason. So for Texas to retain him, for Texas to take care of him, and for Texas to reap the rewards in the NFL draft and recruiting, not to mention what went on this past couple months in winter conditioning, that's huge for Texas. Just as big as retaining anybody that they did on staff this year. Torrey Becton's done a great job. Yeah,
no, I agree with you. It's amazing. And yeah, I saw Mad Dog at the Pro Day there, and he's a big Torrey Becton fan too, because he and Torrey Becton go way, way back as well. So Torrey Becton's doing an amazing job with the training. And like you said, Coach, it translates to the field. It'd be different if it was just, Texas putting out freak athletes at the Combine every year after year, but it's not translating to the field. No, the guys are faster. They're more explosive. And year after year, it seems to get better. The guys on the field in terms of, that strength and that conditioning is definitely translating. All right, let's get to my man CB here. He says, who is the starting running back in Columbus, and does Sark's 1,000-yard running back streak continue this season? Oh, starting running back Columbus got to be Trey Wisner, right?
We'll see.
Interesting. You think CJ Baxter will be ready by then?
By then, you'll be at a full 12 months. And typically with those knee injuries, you need 9 to 10 to fully get back to where you want. 2 extra months, including a full fall camp. I'm not going to say he's going to go out there and run the ball 20, 25 times, but I do think if he's ready to go, he's the most talented running back on this roster. So we'll see if Trey Wisner is who this team and program rolls out there, Texas is going to be in a good spot, right? We trust Trey Wisner with just about every being in our body right now after what he did in College Station last year. But if I had to bet on anybody to carry on that 1,000-yard streak, it would be a fully healthy CJ Baxter. If not, it's Trey Wisner for me.
Yeah. Coach, who do you think is going to start game one at running back for Texas?
I really think, Baxter and Wisner are going to switch out. I think they'll both get looks in there. I don't think they're going to, obviously, as CJ was saying, they're not going to, just hand it off to CJ and just let him, do his thing. But I think, Wisner certainly has as he's proven, he's a 1,000-yard rusher. But, can you get 1,000 yards when you're sharing snaps? I'm not sure, but I think it's a pretty good trait. We're on a pretty good roll right now, 1,000-yard rushers, and I certainly would like to see that, continue. And I think if it happens, it's going to be CJ Baxter that does it.
To build off of that, Coach, you now have 6 capable running backs, right? That's not ever been the case in this running back room here at Texas. So with the 2 freshmen, James Simon, Ricky Stewart, get them acclimated, especially early in the season, because look, you're going to be playing, hopefully, 14, 15 games. You'll have your opportunity for your main guys to go get big chunk yardages, but there's no reason to have them out on the field for 20 snaps against UTSA or UTEP, right? No disrespect to those programs, but those are games that now you should be able to win without your number 1 running back needing to get 20, 15 touches, however many it might be. So save them, preserve them, because later on in the season, those yards – however many they get, it's going to be even more meaningful than what happens earlier in the season.
Yeah. The 1,000-yard thing depends a lot on health, number 1, and how many games they play. Last year, you played 16 games last year. Played a lot of games last year. Now, probably didn't rush for a lot of yards in those college football playoff games, Arizona State and Ohio State, but still, so playing a lot of games and the health of those running backs overall. And, yeah, how Sark decides to use them. I just think – I want CJ Baxter ready for SEC play. The non-con Ohio State, it's going to be a great game, big game. It's one of the biggest games of the year. I'm not as concerned with being ready for Ohio State for CJ Baxter because now we got the college football playoff. I think kind of changes to me, it changes your approach to some of those non-con games. But we shall see. I hope CJ Baxter is back by then. Be great to have both of those guys fully available. All right, thank you, CB. Also CB wanted to know this, and I want to ask you, CJs, because you got the chance to see the media window, which they canceled today or rescheduled. They're going to reschedule the media window because it was raining today. But you saw the last media window, the Parker Livingstone hype, CB, as well as a lot of people want to know. Will Parker Livingstone be in the circle of trust, he says. I like that. Is the Parker Livingstone hype for real? Is it substantive, or was this a lot of, just kind of hope and wishing that he was going to be
no, it's real.
Okay.
It's very real. I would say right now you have 3 guys in the circle of trust, if you will. It's it's DeAndre Moore, it's Ryan Wingo, and it's Parker Livingstone. Who might join them, we'll see. But I don't think there's a 4th that's super close. Of course, it's only day 1, day 2 of practice. But those are your 3 in the circle of trust. And then where does Texas go out of the portal? That'll be interesting too.
All right. Thank you, CB. We appreciate that. Let's thank our final sponsor before we end today's show. You've tried flying. You've tried driving. Now it's time to upgrade to Von Lane, the smarter way to travel between major Texas cities. And for our out-of-state listeners, actually, Von Lane connects Nashville, Memphis, and Atlanta. But Getting back to the folks here in Texas, if you're trying to get to Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Von Lane is the only way to travel. Let's face it, flying is a hassle. Security lines, packed gates, delayed flights, ridiculous prices of anything you buy in an airport, all for what, a 60-minute trip? That is not worth it. Not worth the stress levels. Driving isn't much better. You got traffic you got to deal with. There's the hours of lost productivity, emails piling up, calls going unanswered, and work left undone, all while you try to focus on the road to make that round trip. Also not worth the stress. Von Lane changes everything. It's luxury regional bus travel, what some call a private jet on wheels. I actually can attest to this because I've taken Von Lane to Houston and to Dallas. It is great. You can sink into a plush leather seat with a leg rest, stay connected with complimentary Wi-Fi, enjoy complimentary snacks and drinks on every trip, plus delicious meals on select departures. If you need to freshen up, they have hot towel service. If you want to relax, you can enjoy eye masks and pillows and blankets. The Von Lane team takes care of every detail so you can sit back, relax, unwind, and enjoy the most comfortable travel experience on the road today. So for business travelers, you can work while you're on the road there. I've done it myself, doing some research, going down the rabbit hole so you can recapture lost productivity. For leisure travelers, you can sit back, relax, and get pampered by the Von Lane team. And if you're planning a special trip, guys trip, girls trip, bachelor party, bachelorette party, maybe it's for a football game or a concert or a special event, you can charter your own Von Lane coach for the ultimate group experience. Von Lane, first-class travel without the hassle. See for yourself. Visit vonlane.com. That's VONLANE.com and use the promo code OTF25 for $20 off your first trip. That's vonlane.com and use the code OTF25 to get $20 off your very first trip. Thank you to Von Lane, and also thank you to our other sponsors as well. We appreciate all of their support today. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes. He's the real MVP. We can't do it without Matthew. Thanks, Coach. Coach out there really ranching and joined us. You can see him pulling the trailer in the back and everything. He's got his cowboy hat next to him. That's why we love Coach. He's the real deal. Thank you, CJ. We appreciate all of your nuggets. Look at that. Boom. Look at that. See? It ain't just for Yellowstone, guy. That's for real. That's a real damn cowboy right there.
Come on.
Yeah. All right. Thank you to the rest of our sponsors. Thank you to SouthPointDodge.com. Thank you to FlatCreekEstate.com. Von Lane. We appreciate our friends over at Von Lane as well. And thank you guys out there for joining us and all of your support. And for Coach and for CJ and for Matthew, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Hook 'em horns.